Welcome to another episode of the Bone Tone Cooking Show. This time, we're doing shrimp stew and potato salad. Just like before, everything's laid out that you're gonna need. You need some potatoes, las palapatat. Then you need onions, bell pepper, garlic, eggs, all the fixings for your potato salad that I'm gonna get to later. Then your seasoning, your roux, your shrimp, and your stock, and of course rice. So the first thing we're gonna need to do is cut our bell peppers and onions. Let's get to it. Alright, now that we got the onions cut and then we got the pot heating up, you want to put a little bit of oil in there, just enough to brown your vegetables in. So now that your pot is hot, go ahead and add your vegetables to it. Make sure you get all that goodness in there. And kind of like how we do with that gravy, we're just going to stir this around. Make sure the onions cook until they're clear. See, most people, they just put the pot of water boiling and add this to it. But you get more of a better flavor profile as you cook it this way. Every little thing makes a difference. Now that you got your onions and bell peppers simmering on there, getting a little color to them, making them clear, then what you're going to do is season your shrimp. So I'm going to start with my Cajun seasoning as usual. Don't want to go too heavy because it's kind of salty. But keep in mind that that's the seasoning you get into the whole stew. So I put about comme ça, that much. I'm going to touch it up with some heat, some cayenne pepper. Then I'm going to go to the onion powder. And like I said before, you put a lot of that. That's good. I'm going to mix that up. Now that we had a little bit of time, we're going to check on our onions and bell peppers. Alright, while we was doing that, our bell peppers and onions cooked down and even stuck a little bit, and that's okay because we're gonna make that turn into some flavor juice, which we're about to get to right now. We're gonna add about 4 cups of water, and we're gonna stir all that, make sure that stuff at the bottom gets mixed in. It's just our base for the stew. Now when it comes time to add our roux, and look, I know a lot of people make their own roux and stuff, but the reason I'm using this right here is so it comes out just the way Paran does it. Because you can make a roux and it can be different every time you make it if you're not used to it. I always suggest the Savoy's dark roux. That's the best one to use. A lot of times when you see people make a stew or a gumbo or whatever, immediately what they do is they fill the pot up with water, put it to a boil, then they mix their roux in there and they gotta stir and stir and stir. Then you gotta worry about it boiling over and all kind of stuff. But I'm gonna show you a really easy trick to make it to where it doesn't do any of that. It's real fast and easy, and it comes out just as good. What you're gonna do is stick your spoon in there that you're gonna use to get the roux out, and it's gonna get hot. See, that way when you go into the roux, look how it cuts through that like butter. So you ain't gotta fight that. Then you're gonna put, for a stew, for a gumbo you go lighter. But for a stew, I'd say about half a jar for this size pot. So right after you put that, you want to start mixing. What's going to happen is the roux is going to start melting and it's going to turn into a big thick paste, kind of. And once it gets to that point, we'll come show you. Then we're going to add some more water. And you'll never have to worry about it boiling over or none of that, or burning, as long as you stir it right here. It's starting to come out almost like a super thick stew. That would be too thick. That's like some chocolate pudding right there. We don't want that. That's not Cajun. As you can see, it's all broke up in there real good. So what I'm gonna do is go get my water and my shrimp stock and add that. So now that it's mixed in there good, I'm gonna add another 4 cups of water. And in addition to that water I just added, I'm gonna add this really strong shrimp stock that my cousin made for me. That's Cajun. And it's about as strong as when you get the better than bouillon base at the store. And to replace this, because I know y'all won't have something good like this, I'm sorry, but we can maybe make that in another video. But what you do is go get you a can of lobster base. It's in a little jar. And use about that same amount. I'd say it's like a tablespoon for that whole pot. That's all you need because it's strong. Now, we're gonna stir all that up real good. And I'm gonna show y'all what to do next here in a second. Now, as you can see, it looks like it's gonna be a thin stew. But another one of the tricks to making a good stew is to keep reducing it. You boil it at a low heat till it reduces and gets thicker. You add water, you reduce, you add water. And the more times you do that, the better it's gonna be. And that's why with Cajun food, patience is a virtue. Now we're gonna leave that there, let it start simmering, and we're gonna get cracking on our potato salad. All right, I already got some potatoes cut up in the water, but I'm gonna just use one to show y'all how to do that. And this is gonna be for our potato salad. So I'm gonna peel that potato like this. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it up. Do like that. Just hit some little slices. They don't have to be perfect, but as I said before, every time you cut potatoes, you want them to be all about the same size. Add that to the water. Then we're gonna put some eggs right in there with it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're gonna put that on the stove over here and crank it all the way up. So we got our potatoes and our eggs cooking at a high heat. And what's gonna happen is we're gonna cook that till it gets soft. Then once it gets soft, we're gonna pull the eggs out, peel them, drain that, put it back in and mash it. And I'm gonna show y'all what to put in it for the potato salad. But we're gonna let that sit for now. And we're gonna come back to the stew that we got cooking right here. So, as I showed y'all earlier how it was real thin looking, look at it now, ball. That's almost how we're gonna want it. So we're just cooking all the onions and bell peppers and that stock all down together. Then we're gonna add our shrimp. But, and now this is important, you don't want to add your shrimp till it's almost done, because you cook your shrimp too long, it's gonna get real tough, and we don't want that. And another thing that's important to know also is you want to keep your stew when it's simmering at this point at a low simmer. Because if you don't, it could still burn and stick to the bottom. And once it does that, it's pas bon. Now we're gonna let that just chill like that for a while, and we'll come back to it in a second. Now that we got the stew reduced down a little bit, and we got the potatoes are getting soft now, I'm gonna show you what that looks like. You pass a spoon or whatever you got, and see if you can cut the potato real easy like this. And see it just splits right up. So, we're gonna turn that fire off, and we're gonna go over to the sink, and we're gonna dump that in there, come soft. All right, so as I said, once your stew cooks down, it'll get real thick. That's a little bit, that's almost about how we want it. We're gonna add water and cook it down to that again. The more times you do that, the better your flavor is gonna be. So I'm gonna pop in a little bit at a time. So it end up being about a cup of water. And it's gonna thin it back out. Not quite as thin as it was to start with, but like in between. All right, so after you dump your potatoes and your eggs into your colander, or strainer, whatever y'all call it at y'all house, but I call it a colander. You take your chef spoon and you get all your boiled eggs out of there. And you put them back in your pot and you put some cold water. And it makes it to where when you go to peel the egg, it's super easy. And I'm gonna show you all the trick. You smack it down, roll it across, and these shells come off like butter. Real easy. Like I said, you smack it, roll it across, and then peel it. And it comes right off. Drop it in the water. Alright, once you get your eggs and your potatoes together in the pot, all washed and cleaned and peeled, you start mashing it up. Alright, so you're gonna come with your Cajun seasoning, your onion powder, you put a lot of that, your garlic powder, comme ça, and some black pepper. And last but not least, I got a little special ingredient over here. There's some pickle juice. You put a cup of that. You mix it a little bit. And what you're gonna start doing is adding your mayo and your mustard. Now, this part could be a little tricky, but you'll get the hang of it as you do it. But you basically put enough mayo. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 big heavy tablespoons of mayonnaise in a pot that's this size, and it's about half of the way. So we'll mash that a little bit. And what the mayo does is make it kind of creamy. Not creamy like mashed potatoes, but you want it to be smooth with a couple chunks here and there of eggs and potatoes. Now, the purpose of the mustard, kind of like the pickle juice, is to give it a little bit of a kick to it, a zing I like to call it. So you want to mix it till the color is kind of uniform like this. Got a good yellow tint to it. Everybody makes potato salad different, but mainly in the 337, the Acadiana part of Louisiana, likes to do it like this. Thing is, if you taste it and it's not enough mustard, like if it's not enough of a tart flavor, because you want it to have that zip that complements the flavor of the stew. So you touch in a little bit of mustard as you go. Mix it up real good and then taste it. And once you're happy with it, put that to the side and we're gonna get cracking on that stew. All right, so when it comes to cooking the rice, just like I explained before, but I'm gonna show you all better this time. You have 1 cup of rice, whatever cup you got. That's 1 cup of rice. And me, I got a big family, so I'm doing 2 cups of rice. And what you do from there is 2.5 cups of water. Because like I said before, you always want to use the equal amount of however many containers you use plus another half a container, no matter what the container is. So that was 2, and that's a half. Now we're gonna put that cooking, and we're going over to the stove. Now that our potato salad's done, we're gonna come check on our stew, which is sure getting thick. So what we're gonna do is add a little bit of water to that. Let's see how much. About a half a cup. Because you want your stew to be thick, but we're gonna cook it down some more. See, because it's the second time it reduced. And like I said, the more times it reduces, the better it's gonna taste. See, you want your end result to be a little bit thicker than this. But the reason you add a little water is because it's gonna thin out on its own. So what we're gonna do right here is add our shrimp. Just put that right in there. Comme ça. Then you don't want to stir it too much. See how that seasoning stuck to that? It's gonna go into the gravy, but it's even better if you let some of that seasoning stick to your shrimp. So we're on about a medium to low simmer. You'll let your shrimp just relax in there. All right, so now, once you see your shrimp are cooked, which is gonna be obvious, they're gonna turn white, kind of almost pinkish. But once they cook, it's safe to taste test it. So I'm gonna dip it in there, taste it. And sometimes it's hard to judge. See, I make you season your shrimp heavy, or hopefully this seasons it enough. But it's not quite spicy enough for me. So And treat this like it's kind of like a thinned out salt, because that's almost what it is in Cajun seasoning. Put a little bit of that in there. Then, as you know, for the flavor, we're going to put garlic powder and onion powder. And of course, for the heat, we're going to use cayenne pepper. I'm going to light that little ass on fire. Then you stir that up. Make sure it's mixed in there real good. We're going to taste again. I think I nailed it right there. So next thing we're going to do is put our eggs in there. But see, the way I do my eggs is a lot different than a lot of people do. I don't like to ball it on the side of the stove and then peel them and put it in, because you're missing out on a lot of flavor. So this is how I like to do my eggs in my stews and gumbos. I crack it into a cup and you almost poach it. So we're gonna come over here and you dump it real fast, like that, and try not to let too much of it string off. And what's gonna happen is those eggs are gonna cook with the juice of the stew cooking directly into it, so it's a lot more flavor. As you pour them in, make sure you're mindful not to pour them one on top of the other. It's okay if it happens sometimes, but you really want to try to separate them. And it's also important to know that you want to keep your heat on a low heat, almost like a simmer, because while the eggs are forming together, you don't want to stir that pot at all. We're not making egg drop soup over here, we're making a stew. So you just let that cook, and I'll get back to you in a second. Now that it's been simmering for a while, all the eggs got hard and they staying together, and your stew's ready to eat. Now as you can see, it looks like the eggs are poached, but they cooked all the way through. So you can cut it with a spoon and see that it's cooked all the way through. But it's full of stew juice. Now we're gonna plate that and it's time to mange.
Après guetter le soleil, après coucher, dans la distance, blanchard après souffler. Oh, même la nuit de les enfants, quand tu partis, ils ont parti pour les grands vies, pour faire leur vie.
Join us next time on Bon Talk Cooking Show when we're doing a crawfish fettuccine. And until next time, I don't want to leave y'all too lonely. So what's the loneliest bayou in the world? By yourself. Nah, Paran loves you. Until next time.